Hello. I think in songs, like my kids will come and tell me something, and I'll have a song that goes with whatever they're saying. So if you want to know the two songs that are in my head about this topic we are discussing today, you're going to need to leave that in the comments. So, welcome back to the Better Together Homestead. I am Kelly. This is Bo. And we have a hot topic today about farm animals and about first generation homesteaders, how to handle your farm animals, say bringing them into the farm, letting them go from the farm. And today we had our biggest farm sale and we had our biggest farm loss all wrapped in one. So we're going to chat with you through our Jersey heifer, Princess Buttercup, who we brought onto the farm when she was like a month.
Yeah.
Maybe a month old. And then
Makes
today we just sold her. So as you guys are jumping on a live stream, let us know where you're listening from or watching from in the chat. And if you have questions about converting a shed to a house, being a first generation homesteader, moving from the city to the country, put them in all caps, and then we will get through those and make sure we answer your questions before we jump off today. So I hope you're having a great afternoon. It's Thursday. Thursday? Yes, Thursday.
Which we're going to try to switch it up a little bit
Mhm.
where we're
Coming
going
in
to
the afternoons.
Yeah, live stream in the afternoons. I think it's going to be good.
We could join you on your lunch hour. That would be perfect. Oh, hey, Christina. We see you're coming in from Kempner. And Paul in St. George. That's awesome. My brother lives in Utah, actually, in Salt Lake. Hey, from Waco. There you go. We get our feed from Heritage Farms, our Heritage Homestead in Waco. We're just talking to someone about that today.
Yep.
So if you want your chickens to lay on really good feed, ours have been laying lately a lot, like 18 a day.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Tell them the story while I'm editing this stuff about why
it was actually right about the same time everyone was talking about Purina and how their feed was keeping their layers from laying. And then we haven't been feeding Purina. We actually have been getting our feed from a Waco, I guess it's they blend it there. What do you call it? They mix it.
Yeah.
So they're their own mix, and it's a soy-free, non-GMO feed that we've been giving our chickens, whether they were layers or meat birds, for the last 4 years. And then just before winter of 2022, we stopped getting eggs. We were getting like 1 egg a week out of 20 or 30 birds that we have. And then everyone kept talking about the feed and how it was such a challenge and no one's birds were laying normally. And they were like, is that why your birds aren't laying? And I was like, I don't really think so.
Oh, all that drama about
all the drama about the feed. So then we were like, forget birds. I hate chickens. I don't care about them anymore. Just let them live their life out on our property. And if they survive, they survive. So we took the poultry netting down around our chickens. And maybe some of you guys have had this experience too. But we had this electric poultry netting and we just took it down and kept rotating the chickens, which was always such a pain anyways to then get that fence back up. But we stopped putting the fence up and we would just start moving the birds in their tractors each day, and then they free range. The downside of this is poop. There's poop everywhere. The upside of this is now we're getting 18 eggs a day off of 22 birds.
Well, yeah, and also the upside is that instead of all of the poop in one location and burning everything,
that's true,
there is poop spread out everywhere.
So we've got a solution.
The poop doesn't bother me as much, but I understand that.
Well, we have kids running around. So we've got 5 kids, 4 of which are running, 5 of which are at least walking. So that's a lot of.
And they don't like to wear shoes.
Yeah, it's really gross.
Definitely not boots ever. It's gross. It's just gross.
If you have child training tips on shoes, you let me know. Okay, so let's say hey to Granny Rita from Yellville, Arkansas. That's awesome. Amber's in Arkansas too. And New Orleans lady in Louisiana. Love that. You live in a tiny house. That's awesome. Okay, so let's just.
We got to. This is sponsored. Can we do that?
Yes.
Okay, everybody. So just a little shout out.
Speaking of tiny houses.
Speaking of tiny houses, we are in our Shed 2 tiny house studio. This this live stream is brought to you, and all of our live streams are brought to you by United Portable Buildings. We have worked with so many different companies, dealers, and manufacturers of these shed to houses. And it was whenever I met Casey Wiggins at United Portable Buildings, when I understood how nitpicky, detailed he is about the buildings that he builds, and how he is able to source all the grade A lumber material so that everybody along the entire process can save money and just build a highly efficient and affordable home, or whatever building that you're going to use it for. For us, we're excited about people that want to get out of the 30-year debt of a mortgage. And that's amazing, the fact that we have two buildings. We have our non-United Portable building, and we have our studio United Portable building. And definitely, every time we walk into this front door,
it's just a better building. So if you want a better building, check out this link, which is going to help you play a little like design game. Basically, you can design your own shed to house in different levels. You can have 2-story, 1-story. You can figure out where bedrooms would be. You basically get to play around and design your own shed to house in any way that works for your family or your lifestyle, right? Maybe you just want to drop down one building, no plumbing. You can do that too. So go ahead and play around there, totally free. And then if you want somebody to talk with you about the next step to getting into a shed to house, then there'll be links to do that right there, and someone will follow up with you. So hope you guys have fun with that, because United Portable Buildings is one of those people, like, as long as they want to be in business with us, we want to be in business with them, because I don't think we can bring people a better product than what we get with them. So check out that shed to house builder.
Okay, you want to do, what's next?
I was going to say, on the topic of living in the shed to house and what it looks like to put it on property, we live on 7 acres in Central Texas, and we have 5 kids in an 800 square foot shed to house that we converted almost, it'll be coming up on 5 years this summer when we started the build. July. And then little by little, we've added things like the chickens, and we've done some meat birds, but we are absolutely green as it comes from the city to the homestead. No one showing us how to do anything. We just thought, everybody's learning things on YouTube these days. Why don't we learn how to homestead? And so we did. And that's where we are, about 5 years almost into this whole homesteading adventure thing. And I would say it's stuck. And today we made our very first big sale. So let me run down the list of things that we've sold from our property to create income. And then if you guys want to know more about income, drop it in the comments. Remember, if you have questions, if you'll put them in caps, then we're going to know which ones are questions and which ones are you guys just connecting and chatting. If you see someone else from your area, feel free to chat through and create your own little homestead community.
And then ask questions along the way.
Yeah. So I think the first sales we ever made from our homestead were rabbits. We raised rabbits in the city. And then when we moved here, we knew we were going to bring our animals with us. And then we sold several for just like pets or people to start their own breeding. What do you call that?
Rabbitry?
Their own rabbitry at their own places, right? So we sold probably half a dozen or more, and then
more than that,
we butchered for our animals, and
we sold them for like $20-$25 per bunny.
It was a pretty good price. Rabbits tend to breed like rabbits, so as long as you can keep them healthy and thriving, that's great. And then the next thing that we did was we raised meat birds, and I would say that sale was more for our own savings in our freezer. So I would say that was a moneymaker in that it replaced. I have not purchased chicken from Costco in 4 years.
No.
Yeah.
We did meat birds after
3 years then.
I thought we did meat bird for the first time in 2020.
Yeah, I think in our very first, but that was within the first year and a half, I guess.
Because COVID hit and we were like, we need meat birds, and they couldn't get the meat birds. We had to do it in the summer, that very first time. I remember it was too hot because they
That's
started
right.
dying
They
because
were
it was too hot.
dying in the heat. But what I would say that did for our family is instead of paying $20 for 2 meat birds, maybe 25 at Costco. That was in 2020. I'm sure the price is higher now, but we had 40 birds that we put into our freezer.
Mm-hmm.
And then since then, we've done 3 maybe batches. I think we've done 3 batches of meat birds since 2020.
Yeah.
And then the next thing that we actually sold, like someone exchanged money for it, was pigs. So we were like, hey, let's just try this pig thing. We really wanted to have our own pork in the freezer. Pork is something I would never buy from the store because it's just really poorly raised. It's very difficult to get a quality feed pork. You just never know what it is. So we thought,
besides bacon, yeah.
How complicated could this be? Turns out it's much more complicated than we thought. But it was actually a lot of fun to, like, I think if you're going to do this whole leave your life behind you and start something new, you really have to be okay with like failing at stuff. You have to be okay with the failure being the thing that feeds your success. So I think there were things that we certainly learned with that first batch of pigs, but we had 3 of them. They were the Hulk, Peter Porker, and Sherman.
Sure. Nobody cares about the name.
So they're all superheroes.
They're red wigglers with a little bit.
But if you're going to have a homestead with kids and they want to name the animals, let them name them after superheroes. It's very fun.
Peter Porker.
So we had those animals and we raised, I think it was, do we have 3 buyers for those? I think we had 2.
Well, no, 4.
I think, yeah. So we kept 1/2 of those pigs and then we sold.
No, we kept Sherman. No, Sheldon. We kept Sheldon, the smallest one, as the whole pig for us, and then the 2 bigger ones were sold by the half hog. So we had 4 customers.
Yeah,
and it was profitable. It was nice.
Very profitable, and it was very successful. Like everyone really enjoyed the pork, and so we decided to do that on a second round, and that was awesome as well. Mm-hmm. And then since then we got into breeding our own pigs and we're able to sell some as breeding stock for other people too. Mm-hmm. So I like either way, whether you're getting meat done or you're raising them as animals and selling those animals. And then today,
well, before we did, remember the calves? We also did the auction. So our last video, we talked about how much we made off of those calves, which was not as much as we had hoped. Which leads to today, I would much rather do it like this.
Yeah. So today, and the reason we're talking about selling animals from your small house, big land living is because most of the time in our inbox, we're getting questions of, how do you afford this? Or sometimes accusations like, oh, you guys just sit back and you live your life and you make no money. You just must be so rich. Or
farm tourists.
You must have, inherited money or inherited this land. The truth is, no, we work really hard for it. And I don't know, maybe that comment comes from people watching others live their life on YouTube and genuinely asking the question, or just making some gross assumptions about how people who share on YouTube live. And we want to peel back that curtain and just show you, like, no, you really can fund your homestead life from the projects you do on your homestead. So today, our biggest sale was our Jersey heifer Buttercup, Princess Buttercup, as you wish. Get the reference? Let me know in the comments. So Buttercup came to us in 2021 when I was pregnant, and
we got to get them the paperwork. I just realized that. We forgot to do that. Oops. Sorry. Keep talking.
Great side note.
Sorry.
So 2021, I was 3 months pregnant and super, super unwell. I was just feeling what I would say is like typical pregnancy, nausea, hunger all the time, and just couldn't get enough calories in at once. So we could either go to the dairy 40 minutes away, or we could become one. So we did, and we got this fantastic Jersey who was in milk, and we bought a calf alongside of our milk cow Goldie. And that calf was Princess Buttercup, and she was just a month old, and she came home and helped us calf share the abundance of milk that came from our Jersey cow Goldie. So Goldie was producing almost 6 gallons a day when we got her. There's no way our family could keep up with that. So in Goldie's milk, production, we needed an assistant, and that's what the calf was. So Buttercup came. She was a purebred Jersey heifer. We knew that we could breed her in the future and that we could either keep her and keep her calf, or we would have the freedom to sell her at a profit. So Buttercup is now 18 months old, I think. November, December, January, February, March. She's almost 19 months old, and she's bred with an A2 Jersey heifer. When you have cows, you can AI them, which is artificial insemination, and you can even sex them so that you get the gender that you want. So let's say you were trying to get a really great purebred bull, you could breed for that. Or what we did was a heifer calf. And the reason we like that is that then whoever owns that pregnant mama is able to decide, do we want to keep that cow, or do we want to give that, or that new calf, or do we want to sell that new calf? And you can get a better price for a Jersey heifer than you can for a Jersey bull. So we sold Buttercup this morning for $2,200.
Well, yeah. So disclosure, because I want to give a couple of people shout outs depending on if you see this. Like, this was a we're very grateful that we've built an online network. This is part of the reason why I do feel like if you're okay being online, just go ahead and go for it, because for homesteading, because you build an audience, you build people that want to help you and connect.
Yeah.
So
it's mutual.
Whenever we went down for my dad's retirement, we met my aunt. Not met my aunt, but my aunt was there, and she actually got us into homesteading because they bought land whenever we just had Everett and Ollie.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh my goodness, could you someday think that we could live on land?
Yeah.
And we just saw the boys light up on property. It was great. So she said, hey, I've always wanted a Jersey cow. Would you, if you decide to sell Buttercup, will you please allow me to be in the running to buy? I want to pay full price, whatever you need, but could you just call me first to buy her? And so we did that. We actually did it. I didn't really know where she was going to be with it, if she was serious. We actually texted her, and then I posted it online. There was a wait list of everybody wanting. And there was one guy who says, I posted it, and he responded, consider her sold. I will be there tomorrow if you're available. And my aunt's schedule didn't really line up. So
she almost went to someone else.
She gave us an extra $100. So in a sense, we sold her for $2,300, but
we also kept her a little.
We also kept her for about another, 10 days or so. So, but that lets you know, like, that's, hey, if you're ever doing something like this, then you might be able to say, hey, I can keep them for an extra week, but I got to increase the price because I have to feed her.
And I think the hot point on, sometimes you feel like, gosh, you're so close to this animal, or you're so close to the situation. You wonder, like, is there really the value to anyone else? And seeing this many people interested in her at the price point that we had, and she was a low price point because she's got a little bit of work to do to help her get ready. Like, she's not in milk yet. She's not used to the stanchion. She's a little work to do.
Yeah, she needs to be halter trained.
But even getting her, I watched you get her into that.
This was her best day.
I'm so glad
that she has ever, like, and
to be able to give her away on her best day. That made me feel really purposeful in raising her.
And not to say that she's so letting you know of the pricing, because if you ever want to do this, a lot of people want to know, like, what can you expect? We bought Goldie in milk. She had already have a calf. She was already producing, I think, whenever they said, he said, you're probably going to get 3 to 4 gallons in the morning, and then you can probably get, 2 gallons at night or whatever. So somewhere around there. I think one time we got like 6 gallons.
Was being milked
it was
twice
so
a
much.
day.
Yeah. With the machine. So we bought her for $2,500 without knowing any genetics, like zero.
Let's get a cow.
Only thing we knew is that she was a registered Jersey.
Yeah. And we knew what she looked like.
Sorry about the light, you guys. The light's kind of going blue. Okay. That's just weird. So anyway, so $2,500. Registered Jersey. We have papers. with Buttercup, I was thinking that it would be a little bit cheaper. We didn't know the price. We ended up getting, because Goldie, you know, if you watch any of our other videos, you know that we missed getting Goldie pregnant the first time. So she didn't get pregnant, she miscarried or something. It didn't work the first time. So we knew that we needed to do another AI session for Goldie. And at that time, Buttercup was coming of age that she could get AI'd as well.
Right.
So it was just a bit better bang for our buck to try to AI 2 animals versus 1. All the tech, and while he was here, we said, hey, will you go ahead and also do the genetic testing so that we find out whether they're A2. We wanted to know what quality milk we were actually going to get, because the farm that we got it from, he didn't care. He was like, oh, I've heard about this A2 thing. Yeah, the fact that he said, I heard about A2, I'm like, what?
Yeah. But we knew statistically the jerseys were going to have this higher rate. It's over 60% of jerseys are A2. This is a more digestible milk. It's more desirable in the market. So if you are getting cows or selling milk, looking for that A2 quality is a really good idea.
So I posted on a couple of Facebook groups. I was like, hey, I'm not selling her. I'm not selling this animal. I'm just trying to understand, what does the market bring? And it was across the board. Is she halter trained? And is she A2? If those two are correct, like, and is she pregnant? Like all of those, is she pregnant, halter trained? This could be upwards of above $3,000, depending on where you are in the country. But like 3,000 was about the floor for this. So for us, whenever she came pregnant, the test came in, she was pregnant. And then whenever the test came through that she was A2, the best quality Jersey milk you can get, we were like, fantastic.
And I think on paper, we really couldn't have gotten better.
Oh no,
to sell a better quality animal to sell.
She's genetically just beautiful, just amazing, and she's gorgeous too. So anyway, but yet she does take a little bit of time to. So I think if we would have had more time to train her, to halter train her, to train her to a stanchion, then you could increase that price. So that's where we came up with the $2,200. And I thought that was a very, very fair price to say, hey, you're going to have a little bit of work with her to get her more used to being handled. She's going to kick a little bit whenever you're touching her udder in the beginning, because she's never been touched like that. So hand milking is going to take a little bit of extra work. And so that's where the price comes from. And then my aunt was just grateful to be able to say, hey, can you keep her a little bit, and I'll help you on the feed cost. So that's, I think,
so that's exciting to have like our biggest sale on the homestead within the first few years. We are very slow to add animals to our property. Even right now, Bo is like, hey, what's our next animal? What do we do? And part of the reason we did sell her at this time is because we don't have the time to reach all of our goals and spend the time to halter train this cow. So it was like, what are our priorities? If we can bless somebody else with an animal that's going to be fantastic. And there are so many things that were fantastic about this cow that I'm like, ooh, if you look personality wise between Goldie, who is our cow in milk, and our heifer, Princess Buttercup, hands down, the personality of Buttercup is so much more enjoyable. She's very chatty. She's really curious. She's into what you're into. She's just big and intense after food. And we have small girls. So those little kids just couldn't be out playing all day long if Goldie was out in our space. And there were just a couple of things that we thought, hey, she'll have a better quality of life at someone else's home with larger kids, at like older kids, and more space. And she's getting exactly that.
Well, and also I will say, so we made a video, the cows gotta go, the hay prices, or whatever that title was. It was packed in the summer. Hay prices were really bad here in Texas in the summer. They came down a little bit in the fall. We got some extra late summer rain, so that it really
Yeah.
flushed the hay fields, and people were able to get some one more cutting.
Cutting.
Y'all, it's right back up there. I don't know. I mean, it's just because of the winter. Grass doesn't grow in the winter. So we just now had to buy, because
Yeah.
we ran out of hay all at the worst timing. I had to buy 2 more round bales, and it was $120 per bale. When in the fall, I bought 3 at $75 per bale. And in the summer, I was buying it for 150. So it's not that much better. So it was time. And with
It was time.
the pond just we cut all of our, like, we bulldozed a good like 2 acres of our property, which we need that. So that hasn't been able to recoup. So they're just living off of hay
bales.
basically. Yeah. So it was time, and Goldie's out there crying. She's sad. It's hard. It's
looking for her friend.
I know. But those are the things of why.
So that's an
questions real
encouragement.
quick,
Yeah,
or?
I was gonna say that's an encouragement to you guys, and then we're gonna answer a bunch of questions. So I see shed to house questions. I see some like property purchasing questions, but this live, the whole point is just to connect with you. So ask away. What do you want to know when you watch Better Together videos? What are the things you guys want to know about how to create income from your property, how to get out of the city, how to build a shed to house, even how to find that niche on YouTube where you can create content that you would want to watch, or maybe even you wanted 5 years ago, which is absolutely what we're creating for you guys.
And at the end, after we do questions, I'm going to give you a little, I found this. We haven't found the book. Like, I was looking for this book for a couple of weeks, and it was right in front of my face. And I just want to give these guys a shout out, because I learned something in this book that is new.
Yeah, that's a good point.
At the end, I'm going to give you that. So hang out with us for a while.
Okay, so I'm coming back through questions. If you're asking questions, put it in all caps, and that way we can see them in the chat. So respectful piece of shrooms.
Can you put it up?
Yes, is asking, you're looking to do exactly what you guys do. How did you find your land options for the beginning, and what was your budget for just raw land? Fantastic question. Not to be obscure about it or to avoid the question, but I will say we purchased 7 years ago. So 2015, almost 18 years ago. And the price per land is totally different. So we bought our 7 acres at 6.4 an acre. I think out the door that was like 48,000.
Well, yeah, 6,400.
Let's do math.
Hold on. Keep talking.
So when we were looking for land, we lived in the Houston area. So shout out, I saw somebody in Spring. That's awesome, Julianne. We were in Katy, Texas, which is just east of or west of Houston. West, yes. And we were looking in the Fulshire area. We looked in Katy, Texas. We looked everywhere where we could find plain land with no building on it. We were looking at 1 acre to 20 acres. Some things were in swamps. Some things were like totally rocky in the hill country. There was no way we could even dig in to put something like a garden into the ground. We really exhausted all of the options that we could find. And then I firmly believe this, whoever you are listening, wherever, whatever your faith-based beliefs are, we were looking online in person, and one day Bo was scrolling through and he had a pop-up for, was it Lands of Texas?
Yep.
Lands of Texas. And we were traveling the next week from Houston to Dallas, and there was this spot along the way that we could go and check out about 10 acres. We got here with 3 kids in the car. Ella was just barely even 2 years old. I don't even know if she'd turned 2 yet. And we get to this property, and this big burly realtor comes out. He's got to be half our age, slings one of our kids on his back, and walks through this tall, woody, weeded area. It's just full of like bugs and everything. And we're like, how is this going to work out? We walk through and we're just like, this just doesn't feel like the place.
No.
He says, I have one other place to show you. I know you didn't ask about it, but could I take you there? So we follow him in our minivan, which is like crazy down these rocky backwoods roads, no pavement, potholes everywhere.
Kelly was not the happiest.
I was not impressed. And he's in his lifted truck. Yeah. So we get to this new property, can't drive the van up onto the property because it's it's untouched. And John Dean gets out, puts us in his truck. I stay back with the baby, and the boys drive through the property. And they get back about 5 minutes later, and Bo just says, "Would you please get in this truck, and would you please drive to the back of the property?" So we, again, get up on this woody, weeded, bug-filled, fire ant-ridden front of the property, and then he drives us back, and the wind blows, and you can see out in front of you. It's not full of forest. There is space. There are animals next door. There is a huge hay field nearby where they're not spraying, and it just felt like breathing. And that's how we knew that the 7 acres had to be ours. And in a week, God had provided the land, he'd provided the lender, he'd provided the funds in our accounts. Like, this was ours. And it became ours really, really quickly. And that's how we searched for the land and then trusted the process. We also had no pressure. If this didn't work out, it wasn't a big deal. So I think one of Bo's top things that he tells me whenever we're looking at land or houses is real estate cannot be an emotional thing. And if this is an emotional thing, you'll probably make some bad decisions along the way. So our budget was...
I got a little emotional, I'm not going to lie.
Well, you were deeply invested.
I mean,
but you were also open that if I had put the hammer down and said, no way,
of course,
then we wouldn't have done it. But that was a prayerful decision. Whatever, if God brings us the land, and I was like, okay, well, then if he brings us the lender, and then I was like, okay, well, then he has to provide the funds.
We got turned down for...
Yeah, that's true.
A bank turned us down for a loan because we already had the house. And
yeah, we had a house in Katy, and we were in our early 30s, and we worked for ourselves. So
this was before we were on YouTube.
Yeah,
so,
but like we totally worked for ourselves. Like
absolutely.
We had an essential oil business, which we still have, but that was all we had at the time. And it was like, how are we going to be in our 30s owning 2 properties? Like, that's nuts. And eventually this became our total property, but that's how we searched for it. And our budget really wasn't like, your budget really has to be based on what the market is.
This is so we found it as an owner financing, because the previous owner who we bought it from, they were doing owner financing from the land developer who got it. So this was raw land. It's also the same thing as abandoned land. Like,
but do you think you would recommend that?
Would I recommend what? Owner financing?
Owner financing? As like a blanket statement?
It's
I think
possible that we are lucky.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people say you should not do it, that you should be leery of it. I don't know. I would say you need to do your research. You need to have title insurance and all of the above. The place that we went in there, I said, we went to go sign the paperwork, and I also spoke to our realtor. I was like, who's this guy? And they said, this guy does this for a living. Yeah. He does this a lot. You're good.
It's also a really small town.
Yeah.
So I would say very like Flight of the Conchords, like, are conditions perfect? Conditions need to be perfect for you to take the jump. We're looking at raw land. Also, raw land does not equal unrestricted. I think that's really important, especially if you're considering a shed to house, and that'll go into the next question. But considering a shed to house, you've got to be allowed to build what you want to build on your property. And if they're enforcing codes, this may not meet the code. So you need to double check that first before you put a shed to house on your property.
So I'm going to add 2 things real quick. So, because it'll piggyback off of the next question. So one, because we didn't have a budget. Unfortunately, I'm a very budget-minded person. I want to make a wise land investment purchase. Kelly and I talked, and we said, hey, we're going to pull our money out of our stocks. Like, we pulled money out of our Roth IRA. Yeah. Not something that I would recommend, but for us, it was something that this was the next step that we wanted to do. And I saw the profitability, even if we never moved on to this, it was right in that perfect 5 to 10 acres. It's only 10, 15 minutes away from a Walmart. had a hospital.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, the hospital isn't here anymore, but it had a hospital in the town. It had yet to get a tractor supply. It was a part
was
in this county road. There were new home developments going on, and this place looked like it was the smallest one, and it looked like the worst one. So it was a great financial investment purchase. And
so real estate principles still apply.
absolutely.
So like buying the cheapest house on the block in a highly desirable area.
Jack Spirko says you always need an exit strategy.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't work, is it easy to get out of?
Yeah. Like if we hated living, and that was really our desire about a shed to house, was like, if we don't like this idea, if we don't love this adventure of living on Homestead and we want to go back to the city, how easily can we make that switch? Because our marriage was more valuable to us than the dream of raising our own meat or growing our own food or having our kids doing school in the trees.
Because with the shed to house, we thought, hey, if we don't like this is the cheapest way to try it out, to do this weird, crazy adventure.
Yeah.
And then if buyers come in and they don't like the house, then either we can sell the house separately and they can buy the land, or they can do the same and it still has the electric, septic, all of the above. So it was just, we really, really strategized. Like, that's just my brain. Yeah. We really strategized to make sure that all of this is what we need. Okay. So the second thing real quick is we're very, very close to having a contact that we can tell you guys about buying land. Yeah. Because they are doing the work of finding unrestricted property for shed to houses and barn dominiums and RVs, all of these things.
Yeah. So as soon as that's greenlit, we'll let you guys know.
Yeah.
I want to answer this question because I think it's really valuable. So Rev Artist asks, do the shed buildings require city building permits? And the answer is, yeah, if your city requires building permits. That's not to be avoiding the question. It really is, you have to start with, where am I building? And what is the law in that area? You may decide to purchase, these are perfect piggyback questions. You may decide to purchase land in a restricted area because it's close to your work, or because you need access to a hospital, or because your community is there, or because, just like we prayed for property, this is where God led you. So I can't speak for the whole of homesteading or the whole of shed to house building. But if you are looking in a place that requires requires permits because of the deed restriction, then you really do need to build according to code. Some of the places you can absolutely build a shed to house and then have the contractors who are permitted to come in and pull permits and build on your shed to house. But the prohibiting factor could be the size of your shed to house. Some locations require a certain amount of square footage, which is usually more than a shed to house, because they don't want shanty towns popping up in their community residence. They don't want you to put 8 houses that are 800 square feet instead of one really large house.
It all comes to your question. You said, does a shed to house building require city building permits? You didn't ask, do the shed to house buildings require county building permits? If your land is in a city, you're going to have a permit.
Yeah.
This is most of the time. So what that means is buy land outside of the city limits. That's the easiest thing. Now, that's not a blanketed statement everywhere.
Well, or if you already have the land, like, it doesn't mean you can't build a shed to house, but you really do need to go. And some of the things that we've talked about is, shed to house is just a marketing term. Abandoned land, marketing term. Everything you're ever looking at is a marketing term. So other ways of saying this or communicating what you're actually trying to ask to a city is not calling and saying, hey, can I build a shed to house on my property? You're going to say, hey, I'm looking to build a cabin, or I'm looking to build a pre-built home on my property. I call it a cabin. Easy. Call it a cabin. Something you're really trying to communicate to people. And so use the language that they know. And that's like, hey, I'm trying to build a cabin on my property. what is the minimum requirement for this location
So we did that before we bought the property.
Yeah.
We put $100 down on, man, it's so blue. It's weird. We put $100 down for to take it for, and here in Texas it's called an option, to take it off the market. And that's whenever I did all of my work, I called the county and I said, I want to build a small cabin on this property. I'm looking to buy this. What do I need to know? And they said, you need a septic permit.
Yeah.
They said, if you want a septic, you need a septic permit.
If you don't want a septic, go for it.
Then go in the woods. You can do a composting toilet, whatever. But if you want a septic, you have to have a septic permit. I said, okay, what about building? There's nothing. There's no building codes in our county.
Not for plumbing, electric, otherwise. Now, we were at this point, we're much more skilled, but at that point, so fresh. I mean, Bo had built in like 8th grade woodshop. There were some little skills that we learned along the way before we moved, but moving here, we hired a plumber to do all our plumbing, and one of our best friends is a master electrician. So he helped us run electric to the house, and then we had professional team come out and actually run the finished electric to the house. So there were things that we paid for because our family was going to live here and we didn't feel comfortable otherwise. Many, 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 many places online you can learn how to do these things. If you feel confident with that and moving your family in, go for it. Like there's no reason, and you're going to see so many channels having created their home from scratch and done all of the work themselves, and there's a lot of reward to that. So we'll never knock it, but we're not going to pretend like that's what we did.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't see many other
You
questions.
are so welcome. I love this. So I see Christina shares a little about how she pulled a permit for their 50,000 square feet. That's pretty amazing. Electricity done right is safety. I completely agree with you. You guys are doing some things in the Ozarks. That's exciting. Listening, Robert from Miami, Florida. Hey. I love seeing everybody from like different parts of the states asking about how can we really, what we're looking into is how do we create alternative affordable living. And I think everybody wants, their little piece of the states. You want your little piece of land to do with what you want to. And I think 2020 certainly brought that out, where people started asking questions because what we've been fed for so long just wasn't making sense. So something that I want to take note on is a lot of people are asking, how can we create a more self-sustaining lifestyle? How do we become completely independent? And we've lived here for 4 years. We're very good friends with some of your favorite YouTubers like Roots and Refuge and Justin and Rebecca Rhodes and Art and Bree, like all of these friends, Sow the Land. We're not doing it on our own. We're doing this in community. And so if you have family members who want to go in on property, or maybe you're going to be the leader, you're going to be the one who gets out there first, like we are, and our families will come out to us when they need a break, right? They just want to turn off their cell phones and they want to hear the trees and not have traffic running around in their heads. This is absolutely worthwhile doing. But I want to encourage you, and I wish I had heard more about this before we moved onto the property. We had sort of a very not diluted, but like this idea of self-sustainability, like we're going to have our own cow and we're going to have our own chickens and have our own pigs and have our own produce and have all of the things our own. We're actually richer, more fulfilling, and made this life more sustainable because we weren't exhausted when we started doing this in community with other people. So don't be afraid to look in areas where you sniff out a little bit, like check and see what the feed store is like. Who's coming into the Tractor Supply? What's the local building place look like? That's not just a big box store, but like, is there a community of people? Because when we had a sick cow, it was really helpful to chat with somebody who was right here local and willing to even come out and help us. Or when our cows escaped and I am 9 months pregnant, walking them the mile back, the very sweet, very very country farm hands.
Warn people if you say it.
They were driving down our same road just serendipitously at the same time. And they were like, do you want us to load those cows up for you and take them back to your property? Because this is detrimental when you are brand new, learning everything at the same time. We're talking beyond fire hose. I'm talking standing in front of the fire hydrant or like being beaten down by a waterfall kind of pressure. If you're putting all that pressure on yourself at the beginning, you're gonna either fail or you're going to hate your life. And I would hate to advocate for either of those things, but be gentle with yourself because all of this is learning. And some of you are going to have the benefit of learning to can with your grandmas. Some of you are going to have the benefit of maybe going to visit your aunts or uncles on their farms. You're going to have the benefit of gently learning this knowledge. Ruth Ann Zinn said this on her Instagram. She said, I've become aware that many of you didn't have the privilege of gently learning these skills throughout a lifetime. And you're learning all of this at once. And Bo and I were just talking last night. I was like, we get messages in email, in Instagram, even just here in the chats saying, I want to do this, but I could never. Or I dream of this. You're living my dream life. And I think that conversations like this, where we talk about how we're selling things, where we talk about what's hard and what's good, help illuminate and take away the like mystery or even like the sexy ideal view on what homesteading could be, if you could even describe it that way. But I do think there's this romantic idea of this. And the truth is we don't do it on our own. We both work from home, but before we ever got here, we busted it so that we could work from home because this property was going to take all of our energy. And all of this moving toward a skillful life, something that we can pass down to our kids so that they do learn this gently, just wouldn't happen if we had this false idea that we're just going to come in and everything's going to be great and there's no hardship, or when we faced hardship, we didn't know how to cope through that. There's a lot of hard in homesteading and there is a lot of beauty, but there is a total shift from what we lived in the city to what we live here. And that involved a lot of dying along the way. So when you ask questions, I want to say like, yes, ask more questions, but be very aware that like asking the questions is just that first part. There's effort that goes into building your homestead. There is effort that goes into letting those things be what they were for the season before you homesteaded, and know that homesteading has a lot of beginnings that's going to cultivate a brand new type of lifestyle that hopefully becomes something that's sustainable for you and something that you can pass on, because we firmly believe just so centrally in leaving that legacy for our kids. Whatever they do with this property after we're gone, we've left it to them, and we've left it better than what we came in with.
Yeah.
Is that good?
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. I did see Little Ridge Farm. Yes, I think we did get your email just about doing an interview. I don't want to seem rude in the chat, but yes, being perfectly honest, we're trying to get our own content on a schedule. We're behind on so many things.
We have babies,
yes.
And we have animals, and
I know.
I think that's another thing. Like the seasons on the homestead are absolutely those things that determine how life is going to go in each season as it comes up. So
if you think we're worth chasing, keep it up. But we're a tough one to pin down.
Don't be afraid to keep following up.
Exactly. So I've always said this. We are probably not consistent, both of us, from day to day, week to week, but we are consistent month to month, year to year. Yeah. We're not going anywhere. We love this, but our schedule we're just not great at it. So that's just
we're working.
We're working on it.
Bo wants to share this resource because we don't get anything from it. It's just valuable.
Well, because I think we just now lost. We didn't lose. We lost. Well, actually, we did. We no longer have a full grown herbivore.
Yeah.
We only have one.
We just reduced our herd.
We just now reduce our cow manure.
Yeah.
And our cow manure has been so beneficial. Like, we've seen the benefit of it. We have the tractor with the front end loader that we can turn the compost, everything. And so it's Sean and Beth Doherty. What I've learned, because hay feed is so expensive right now, all feed is so expensive. It was whenever I did the Homesteaders of America online, bringing it back to the Homestead Summit. Sean and Beth, I was able to watch one of their videos about their talks about pigs, and they said you can feed cow manure to your pigs.
It sounds weird.
It sounds so weird, but you guys, I've tried it. So we're doing it very free choice. We are not like, I'm just putting it in a forest paddock with Bill and Missy. So they have all the forest to forage and to graze, all of that. They have their ration of their feed, and then they still have clean hay. And they still, every time I plop some things of whatever, of manure there, of cow manure, they go to it. And they just it's like little scavengers. They just like put their nose through it. It's so gross, but it's amazing.
It's a cycle of the farm. So we've got like the cows. We just did a video, it hasn't released yet, but on chickens and like how we raise these chickens on our property, and how if you respect your property and you respect every animal that you bring in. Oh, thank you. That's so generous.
That's awesome. Thank you so much
for throwing that in there. But if you respect the cycle and the role that for us on our family, it's the role that each person plays. It's the role that each animal plays. It's the role that the seasons play. It's the role that the land, even the shape of our property, plays. We can't change what chickens do. We cannot change the cows poop. We can change where we put the cows to poop. We can change how we let the chickens out. And we can change how we control where the manure goes based on how we muck. There's so much musicality and dance to your homestead that when we went back to this book, we were like, oh yeah, the Dohertys said this. We remember seeing them in person and hearing them talk, and there's so much wisdom. This is another way of not trying to be completely self-sustaining. Learn from the people who are already doing what you want to do, and then begin to put yourself in a place, especially on the homestead, where you're applying these really intentional, traditional, ancient practices. I think that I was stunned by the pigs. I was like, this is disgusting. Do not do this. This is so gross. And then what we saw is very happy, very healthy pigs, very like contented pigs.
Well, the pigs go at it, and then the chickens come after the pigs.
Yeah.
It's just super cool. Okay. Last one, and then we do have to go because we have a babysitter. Because I'm passionate about this.
Yeah.
I would say if you eat meat, if you think beyond chickens, if you think you're gonna, I don't know, I would focus on fodder trees. I wish we would have done that earlier. I would focus on fodder trees of white mulberry, hybrid poplar, and hybrid willow. Once you get those established, then the next thing I would probably go to is blackberries, strawberries in a garden.
Yeah.
Like your bushes, because that's really good for Central Texas. And then after that, maybe your pear or peach. But that's still, those are go the easiest and then the hardest.
And look at your, like what's happening in your area. You might have persimmons growing in your area. You might have pomegranates growing in your area. Places like, I will also say this about the trees. We have had a lot of success growing in containers.
Mm-hmm.
So we just now are converting our entire garden to a fodder garden. We'll have some other things in there, but primarily it's going to be fodder trees. And this is so that we can prepare for these harsh summer months when hay will be more expensive, when the grass is brown, so that our cows are still getting really good protein and just really good fresh greens. But we planted in containers. We're learning a lot about what grows well, how we irrigate those things. We have not planted an orchard. Right now, we're just going to be really intentional about a garden that is full of trees. And then the bushes worked well, but we have lots of friends who we'll plant everything from pecan trees, knowing that'll be another 2 decades before they get anything good, to citrus. So it really just depends on what you want, but I would start looking in your area, and then the fodder trees that are going to grow well. Like the ones that we've grown have grown so well. The mulberries are great because we eat the mulberries too. So there's a lot of like perk to the fodder trees.
Oh yeah.
But don't be afraid to grow them in containers, because I think that helped us control. If we had just planted them in the ground, our soil is sketchy at best. So this helped us control the like have good growth in our trees.
Everything.
Good?
It's good.
Okay.
Yes.
Last one. Julianne asks, do we do homestead tours? At the moment, no.
Yeah.
For a lot of different reasons. And part of that is because we just don't have a ton to show outside of like the interest in the channel, which is, hey, we've got videos on cows, we've got videos on pigs, we've got videos on garden. As these things all take established root and we start to create more like permanency in where we keep all those things, I think that'll be much more interesting for a tour. So at the moment, no, we don't do tours.
Yeah. Possibly someday, maybe like a butchering workshop. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not some, yeah.
I think we throw around a lot of ideas, whether it's like, hey, let's just have a bonfire party. Let's do water harvesting. Let's talk about chickens. Let's talk about pigs.
Yeah.
But there are lots of those things that are going on, and we would love to point any of those questions toward resources that are helpful. So if you have a question, let us know in an email, just bettertogetherlife@gmail.com. That's an easy way for us to send you links.
Always email us. That's the best thing that we have. And I would say, if you're in Texas, email us, because we would like to build some sort of Texas
registry. Not registry. We don't need people to like send out, like call you, but like maybe if you want to connect with homesteaders in your area. Texas is different. Like there's HOA on the East Coast, and we love it so much. Like we love all the contributors and the speakers. We think that's fantastic. But for Texans, we equal like 3 of those states.
There's a reason why if you ever watch the show 1883, half of the show is them trying to get out of Texas.
Because it's a very
half of the season. It is huge. So like there's enough of us here in Texas that, and I'm not trying to alienate people outside of Texas. Texas needs some sort of homestead thing where we can, all of us, the homesteaders, can come together. We understand that that's a whole. We're just not ready to do farm tours here.
Right. But it is in the future, ideas and all of those things. And more importantly, we'd love for you guys to be able to build community, north, east, south, west, central Texas. And yes, I do mean that for all of our friends listening from like Virginia. Yes, it really does have to be that much because we are like 14 hours across the state. So thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for asking your questions. Thank you for giving and just being present and being part of this community, because we see so much growth in the last 4 years. So we want to always offer resources like this one right here. This is the Shed to House Configurator. If you've ever thought about, do I want to live small? Do I want to like totally reject this idea of bigger is better? Come check out the Shed to House Configurator. There's no pressure. No one's going to call you if you don't want them to. We just want to give you resources so that you can start this small house, big land living as quickly as you're ready to do so. And in the meantime, we want to be here to answer all those questions.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Hopefully we'll see you next week.
Have a great afternoon. I know.
Once our schedule gets improved.
Encourage us. We're doing it. We're showing up, guys.
See ya.
Have a good afternoon.